Between the Lines with former Michigan lineman Jack Miller on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA. The Ticket. Sponsored by Hylant, one of the country's largest privately held insurance brokerages, offering business insurance, personal insurance, and employee benefits services. To learn more, visit hylant.com.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub on the other side. And Tuesday, we bring on another expert. Take great pride in the expertise that we bring to you, breaking down these games on a weekly basis. And I heard from Mike, I know I've known this guy since he was in high school, covered him for a long time. He played the game, he can think the game, and he can take us inside the game, within the game. That's the game in the trenches, offensive and defensive line play. Often we don't see the intricacies that are involved in there. The guy who opens up that world to us is Jack Miller, former Michigan center, comes on with us on a weekly basis to break it all down. Jack, good morning. How are you here on Between the Lines?
Good, Sam. Good morning. Doing well. How about you?
Doing great, man. Look, I'm going to keep saying it. Every week we can talk about a victory, Jack. Is a good week, man. Is a good week.
No doubt.
Michigan is 7-0.
Yeah, no doubt. They're looking good out there, aren't they? And I think that they are, who we've thought, right? That they play really well up front, both sides of the ball, a strong defense, obviously two incredible running backs, and a quarterback that does what is asked of him and manages a game. And guys show up when they need to. It was good to see them go into halftime and make the adjustments that they did, come out in the second half and really own the rest of that ball game and get ready for the one that we've all had circled here in the state of Michigan next week and up in East Lansing.
Yeah, man. And I'm going to leave some time for us to get into Michigan State, your experience, how you see this year's game,
Sure.
the rivalry, the chippiness, somebody call it being dirty at times, a lot to get into with Michigan State. But let's dive first into Northwestern, and we'll spend the majority of our time on the offense because that's where, the adjustments and the action. And then you look at who they were missing in this game. No Zach Zinner, no Trevor Keegan. We'll get into that as well. So we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, and we will start breaking down some plays. This, Jack, was a game where I really thought these running backs, we've talked a lot about them all year long, and I just thought that they were on vivid display again, how really, really good they are. I think that this is one of the best backfield tandems in the country, and you can make a case. You can make a case for others having better individual backs. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with that, but I don't think you can make a case for anyone in the Big Ten having a better backfield dynamic than Michigan.
No, not at all. I think that you could say that from a two-headed monster perspective in the country. It's impressive to watch these guys go. And I saw a clip the other day on Twitter, and Blake Corum was in the middle of a jump cut, and he was so low to the ground, but yet you could tell under control. It's rare to find two guys that athletic who bring that much to the running game, right? You get a guy who's a speedy burner who, if he hits a seam, he's gone, or a guy who can just blow through a hole and he's going to get 4 or 5 yards when he shouldn't have got any. You got guys back there in Haskins and Corum that can do it all. And they're not, you can tell the chemistry between those guys and the offensive line, but there's no jealousy or bitterness about who's getting reps. Both of those guys seem to really have a good relationship together, encourage one another, and are building each other up so that when one gets called on, it's their time to go and they go make a play. And anytime, you talk about this with defensive line all the time. It's true at any position. When you can get a blow and get out and catch your breath, talk to your coach, get adjustments, feel good about what you're doing, and then go back onto the field, you're going to be better, right? And so when you can substitute out one for the other and there's no drop off and they both bring different elements to the game that are complementary of one another, it's a great spot to be in.
Yeah, so I'm gonna this sort of first series of plays. I'll like give one where the offensive line just blocked it up great, and then I'll give you one where the back kind of saved his offensive line right there. And so there were multiple instances of both, and we'll kind of jump around the game in doing this. So the first one that we'll bring up is the counter FTD, Jack. And Michigan has been an outstanding counter team all year long. I mean, they have just been tremendous. So let me go ahead and bring this up and share the screen. Their linemen, I thought in this game met a challenge, Jack, because I thought that Northwestern, with its movement, with its line slanting, at times they would sort of blow up sort of Michigan's blocking a little bit. And obviously when they stood still, it was really, really good. But Michigan, they adjusted to that as the game went on. So I'm going to bring up this counter TD. Let me go ahead and share this right now.
To your point though, Sam, when you play a Northwestern team, you're going to get two things for sure. They're smart and they play tough, right? And anytime you do that, their defense, that front seven's always going to have a chance to be successful. To your point, they moved around a lot. You got a lot of smart guys on that defense that know where to be, how to be there, and they can create exotic looks. Good to see Michigan pick up the majority of them. This is a play here as you roll through. This is exactly how you draw it out. This is like walkthrough, right? Like, hey, this is exactly what we want to do with this play here. It's just a counter back to the right side. The whole right side of that offensive line pins everybody down, gets up to the backers. See, Hayes gets up to the middle linebacker there. And then, Vistardis pulls from his center position to kick out the right defensive end. Usually that's a guard coming across, but based on, like we talked about, Northwestern giving different looks, some exotic looks and movements, it made more sense in this formation, this defensive formation, for Vistardis to be the puller, goes and kicks out the defensive end. The safeties keeping contained outside. That's just too much. That's just too much to ask of him. Haskins puts his foot in the ground, gets vertical, and runs away with it. It's perfectly blocked, perfectly executed up front.
Yeah, man. And I believe this was after Michigan blocks the punt. And, this was when they really took control of the game at that point, Jack. So that was an important time to sort of punch it in. Now let's bring up one, because sometimes the back has to save his offensive line. He might get beat by a guy. He might have an MA. Can the block still or the back still make it right?
Yep.
And so we'll get to one where Hassan, I said this is one where Hassan covered his lines, but Hassan covered his lines. But I don't think I said but. I don't think I said but in the clip. But hey, your backs have to make their line right sometimes too, right, Jack?
Yeah, they're on scholarship too, right? Sometimes it's not going to be perfect, and you got to ask those guys to make you right every once in a while. And boy, as an offensive line, you feel good when that can happen here. If you run the clip back here, it's 2nd and 1, you're going in. Basically, all that happens, Barnhart's pulling around to the right side to try to kick out the end, but he can't even get there. Stuber just misses his guy. It's just a bad block on his part. He whiffs. Barnhart's in the backfield trying to clean it up. There's just all sorts of chaos and confusion. But that's the beauty of running in the pistol formation there, is that Hassan Haskins is going downhill immediately. And that's what you want in some sort of short yardage situation like that, because that allows exactly what we're talking about here, Sam. You can kind of get through and clean up some of that mess when you're coming downhill in a pistol formation versus when you're offset on the quarterback. You get the ball and only a yard into your progression, you don't have that much momentum or speed going yet, right? That's the advantage of being behind the quarterback there. Not well done up front by any means, but a good job from Haskins to make the guys right. 2nd and 1, just get a yard and keep the chains rolling.
Yeah, man. And I think that this game was such an example, Jack, of Michigan's backs winning against free defenders, whether they were free by design. Because some plays,
right,
you tell the back you're one-on-one with that guy. That's your man. Other times, like on that play, hey, line just gets beat. Can you still beat that guy and make a play? And these backs, so many times during the game, Jack, and so many times this season, they beat that free defender.
Yeah, they have. And even in this game where, like you've pointed out, there were some times, unfortunately, they were asked to beat somebody that they shouldn't have been. But there's a reason we've been talking about these guys all year the way we have, because in those situations where they are asked to make a safety miss or it's one-on-one, they have, right? And that's the reason that this rushing offense is where it is so far in the season. I think Keegan and Zinner being out is a big deal. Those guys those guys are awfully impressive. And not until I watched the film again did I recognize some of the opportunities that we probably missed that we would have had otherwise with those guys in. They've played solid all year. So, it's next guy up. And that's the good news. I think that Barnhart and some of these other guys that came in did a good job. But when you got a backfield like that, you can afford to miss every once in a while and still look right.
Right. So I'm gonna try. We have a guy in the chat. DJ said, "Can you just play it in slow motion? Can you just play the video in slow motion?" I'm gonna open up the video in a different program. I'm gonna use VLC here. I'm getting a little technical, but I'm gonna open it up in a different program and play it back in slow mode. It's for our one of our listeners here. So Jack, let me bring this up on the screen. And all right. So here we go. This is one here. A bunch. You got a bunch to the field, and they run duo here. And I'm gonna play it in slow mo. This one was blocked up well. At least I thought that was in slow motion. See, that's what I get for trying to do it on the fly. Anyway, Jack, talk us through this one. I'll keep playing it back.
Yeah, it's just really well done. You got to give Josh Gaddis credit on this call. They're out leveraged from the beginning on this play. They bring that bunch formation into the wide side of the field, and for whatever reason, Northwestern overreacts to it and tries to cover it up too much. So on the back side of that, you run away from that, and you got numbers. You got a hat on a hat. Everybody's perfectly accounted for. Barnhart with a great block from left guard. The Mike linebacker doesn't do a great job filling his hole. He lets Barnhart get on the right side of him. But from the left side, from the left guard at Barnhart to the Stardust all the way to the right tackle there, it's just perfectly executed. But this is one I think you got to give Josh Gaddis a lot of credit on. This is something that obviously our running game is really good this season. And anytime you can just ask your offensive lineman just one-on-one, and then the back has nobody to make miss besides the safety coming over from the other side of the field, boy, you got to like your chances every time there. Great call, well blocked, good job up front.
All right, and so then from there, I'm going to bring up one now where Blake Corum, much like we saw Hassan Haskins do, covered his lineman's butt. Because every now and then, like I keep saying, every now and then, the back has to make the line right. And so you have Blake Corum. This was, I'm trying to figure out how he made this cut, Jack. I mean, this is like great vision. This is unbelievable feet. This is an unbelievable cut. And I am bringing this up right now on the other screen. I'll play this back in slow-mo for those who are following us on YouTube and also on Twitter. So we'll play this back in slow-mo right here. All right, Jack, and then I'll add this to the screen. And here we go. All right, so this is Blake Corum, one of his best runs of the day, for sure. All right, there we go.
Yeah, so all this is 3rd and 5. Where are we at? Middle of the game, beginning of the second half here. And it's just a zone read to the right side. So it's not incredibly well blocked. Left guard Barnhart gets blown up. The right side of the line does an okay job, but Corum can't get over there because of the chaos in the backfield. I'm wondering if they'll show the behind angle here.
Yeah,
I like watching games on Fox, by the way. This is awesome to see. See, the right side of the O-line does an okay job, and there is a seam there. But for whatever reason, Blake wants to cut it back, and Barnhart gets blown up. Now, if you look at the right side here, they do an okay job. And you see the left tackle get up to the guy. Look, he makes the safety miss one-on-one. The one thing that I noticed about this play is it's a zone read. And there is nobody, if you go back to the beginning of the clip, look at the left side here. There is nobody in the middle of the field on the left side at all. This play is designed so that the quarterback can pull it if he wants. And you see Cade kind of give fake action trying to slow down that drop safety whose Corum ends up making miss eventually. Boy, this is one of those plays that you say, look, the intention of this play is to put that guy in a bind. He isn't getting put in a bind. Corum just makes a miss. If you pull the ball here, you just wonder some of these plays. Boy, if he pulls that around, and it's essentially the same thing, you'd rather have Corum running the ball than Cade McNamara. But
that's. I mean, on that play, you're kicking out there. I guess on most read plays, I mean, you'd be reading that end, right? He's clearly not reading that end.
No. Then why is he unblocked? If you're running away from him, you see him come down there. I mean, you're one-on-one with a safety. You talked about it earlier, Sam. Sometimes you're going to ask these guys to make guys miss. The problem is here is the left guard gets blown up and it creates all sorts of confusion. Because if it doesn't, he's able to see that seam to the right, which is pretty well blocked, and just take off and put on the burners and get 5 yards, right? But it gets convoluted in the backfield because the left guard gets blown up. And then he just, that's just a guy being an athlete, right? Getting around here, whoop, and then just a jump cut. I'm going to make you miss. I'm going to make you miss. You're going to keep going.
Yeah, I marvel at a couple of things. Number one, I just don't know how he saw that cut, how he made the cut. I mean, he cut a split zone all the way back across the grain with a lineman in his face.
Quite honestly, I mean, it's hard to know exactly what he was seeing there, but that might have been, ill-advised. He might have been sitting in film the next day, and Mike Hart's telling him, just go, right? Just trust that the seam is going to be there, because it was. He just couldn't see it because of the confusion in the backfield, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you tell a guy, hey, don't do that when you go pick up 20 yards on 3rd and 5, right? That's the tough part about football.
Right. To your point, I mean, yes, Carson Barnhart was in his lap. But to your point, if he sticks with the split zone to the right, he probably could have got a first down.
Yeah, he gets that first down. I don't know if he makes, 3 guys miss and goes for 20, but he'll get that first down. And so that's always a tough thing, right? But when you got a guy who's got that kind of game right now, is playing that well, has that type of feel, even though the play is designed to go the opposite way, just go, man. Just keep playing football.
All right, so Jack, there was one that I really wanted your expertise on. I want your expertise on all of this, but I wanted you to explain who was at fault on the play, on the safety, the safety blitz. The safety came from depth, and got to the quarterback to blow up a play. And sort of talking to Devin about it yesterday. I think he gave a lot of credit just to the defense for having a good call. But I wonder, from your perspective as a lineman, what you saw. Did you see this as maybe being an MA on the O-line, or was it, hey, tip your cap to the defense? I'll bring this up right now, so you can talk us through.
Just overall, Sam, and this is a type of play that I think that is emblematic of what I'm going to say here. There are some times in an O-line room where everyone's kind of shaking their head going, well, but what about this? Well, but my key told me that. Well, now hold on. What about, you want to have rules as concrete as possible. That's the coach's job. That's, as a former center, that's what you're trying to do is make sure that the rules apply all the time. But sometimes they're tricky, right? And sometimes you just have to go on feel. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the slide protection. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the one down towards the goal line that Core or Haskins made. Right. But okay, this is the same idea. It's the same idea here. So they overslide here. They slide 4 men to the left instead of just your traditional 3. Traditionally, the center slides one way and the other 2, so if they slide left, the right guard and right tackle are just manned up. And then it's almost like a zone to the left if you slide left. For some reason here, they decide to do a big slide, whatever, everyone's got a different term for it. And because they know they have the tight end here on the right, they let him block the defensive end one-on-one. They let the right tackle try to take the D end, and the right guard vacates. And I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it is probably a misassignment somewhere. There's a lack of communication. It also comes at the perfect time for this play call, right? Mm-hmm. So there doesn't seem to be. Look, I mean, if you pause it right there, Sam, there's only 3 guys. That safety's pretty high on the left side there. So I don't know why they would jumbo this and slide 4 guys. Ideally, what you'd like to have is the right guard takes that guy, the right tackle takes the DN. Now the difficult part is they're motioning Corum out of the backfield, so you don't have a running back. It's just 5-man protection. So in something like this, you definitely don't want to jumbo away from. You got 4 guys pre-snap on the short side of the field there, and you're only going to ask 2 blockers, the right tackle and the tight end, to stay in. That doesn't make sense. It's obviously a miscommunication to this extent. This is rare, right? We have not seen this a lot from the offensive line this year, where it doesn't make sense. And very few times have we been out leveraged, whether it's running the ball or trying to protect in the passing game. This is an example of one of them. Now, what you'd like to say is, okay, once they recognize something's wrong, go find work, right? There's 2 guys who aren't blocking anybody on the left side. Just go find work, peel out of there, and go try to take the hit off of somebody, right?
I was confused where I didn't know where on this particular play where Filiaga was going.
Yeah, I think he just sees that. I think he sees that linebacker creeping over and thinks he has to get there, not recognizing the fact that the numbers are right on the left side. He doesn't have to chase that guy. That the Stardust could work back. It's a well-designed blitz, though, and it comes at an opportune time. It's a weird protection anytime you get a running back out of the backfield, because the good news about having a running back as that 6-man protecting versus a tight end, he's in the backfield. He can scan and pick it up from wherever, right? When you got that tight end, he's going to pick up nobody besides a defensive end that's over him, and then you're left to pick up the pieces after that. It's a missed assignment, but like Devin was telling you before, it's a really well-timed blitz from the defense, really well designed.
All right, so let's get in one more offensive play. And this one is an example of good blocking and the backer, in this case, the receiver. Hey, he made it right too. So everyone sort of had to do something really, really good for this play to work. And this was the jet pin and pull with AJ Henning. And it was, I mean, Michigan's linemen have done a tremendous job on the move this season, and then you had to have your ball carrier in this instance. He had to make a play. He had to make some guys miss, and we saw AJ Henning do that on this play.
Yeah, that's right, Sam. It's a great example of a guy with a tremendous athleticism and tremendous effort. And Henning, they just motion him over from the right to the left. They throw him a jet sweep, and they pin and pull the edge. It's a great concept to let your edge. I think it's the tight ends there. Pin down and set the edge and give plenty of room. And then outside, you're just going to have defenders trying to scrape over the top with offensive linemen. You see Hayes there coming around. It's not a great block by Hayes necessarily, but he moves his feet well enough to get on him, right, just to get in front. And that's all you're going to ask that guy to do, right? And then let A.J. Henning work off of that, which he does. The defender goes inside of Hayes. Henning bounces it out and then just gets through a couple tackles, wills his way, keeps running. It's just great effort. You see the Stardust get out there, put on a great block on the linebacker, and Henning just keeps his legs chucking and gets through. I mean, that's a guy who every time he touches the ball, I'm pretty impressed by his athleticism. You'd like to see, get your playmakers the ball in space, and that's what the jet sweeps intended to do. Just go make guys miss and find your way to the sticks to get yourself a first down. Good
well,
job.
You know what? I know I said that was the last play. Bear with me, Ira, just a little bit, because I got to bring this one up. Jack, you knew I couldn't miss this particular play because it speaks to something that you just said. Look, Northwestern, they in the first half especially, I thought they were sort of messing up some of their blocking with their movement, and then you couldn't fool these guys. I mean, a lot of times, you see some plays where they would. They fool a guy with his eyes. I mean, the Bash play is a perfect example. And Jack, we've covered this play a lot. I mean, how many times have we talked about this season that end just being sucked in because they could game a guy like that. Northwestern's guys are really, really smart. And so this was an example of when the Bash doesn't bash, when the Bash doesn't bite, I should say. And so let me go ahead and and pull that up. And I said, when they don't bite on the bash, this is what it looks like. And it would be a Northwestern. It would be a Northwestern guy that didn't bite, right?
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing when I was watching this, Sam. At this point in the season, these teams have plenty of film, right? And they know what's worked for opposing teams and what hasn't. And leave it to Northwestern to be smart enough to figure this kind of stuff out and say, okay, this bash play that we've talked about all year and has been huge. It's been touchdown-like, I think, for the Wolverines throughout the season. On this time, I guarantee, Sam, if you and I are sitting around on Tuesday mornings talking about what's going on with this play, then Pat Fitzgerald and his staff have figured it out too, right? And they knew that this is something that Michigan wants to do. The only difference, so you see the defensive end get upfield, right? So I guarantee in practice this past week, Northwestern's defense was harping on, if you're not blocked, if they block down, don't be afraid to get upfield a little more to take that play away, right? Instead of usually if somebody blocks down, the defensive end is taught, get right on his heels and go down the line of scrimmage with them. They might have said in this instance, okay, don't be afraid to get upfield. Now, the only difference from this play, the way Michigan's running it to the way they ran it in the past, they're not running it into the boundary, which is different, right? All those plays before, they ran it into the boundary and just asked him to outrun. And I don't know if that creates a bind for the defense where they can't get up the field like that. But we talked about it earlier, Sam. The reason defensive ends don't want to get up the field is it creates a cutback lane, right? It creates a seam in there. And if you don't run that zone read where the quarterback pulls it, then you really need to get down the line all the time, because if the quarterback's never going to pull it around, then what's the point of getting outside? There isn't one. You want to stop the running game, right? So it's interesting. They weren't doing that to stop the zone read because Cade really never pulls it. We don't run it all that much, and Cade really doesn't pull it. They certainly did that to stop that bash play, and it worked there. Kudos to Northwestern and their D.
Yeah, it was I think a textbook example when you said their guys are really smart. I was almost forgot to play that play, but that wasn't exactly what we saw in that play. Really, really smart guys, well scouted. They were just overmatched. And so once Michigan figured out, made the adjustment to their movement, and it was just they were able to get a hat on a hat. They just plowed through these guys. So we will get to the defense on the other side and talk a little Michigan State as well. Jack, before we get to the break, this segment is brought to you by the Highland Group. Tell the folks all about Highland.
Yeah, Highland's a full service insurance broker, property, casualty, business insurance, employee benefits, personal lines. If anybody's looking for some options out there, Highland's one of the largest privately held brokerages in the country. So hylant.com. Get a hold of somebody at Highland. Love to help you out.
All right, so we'll get to a break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll break down some defense and talk about the matchup with the Spartans here on the other side, Between the Lines with Jack Miller on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket.
Clear on the radio.
All right, so Jack, let's a little bit about Michigan State here, folks, for the people. We'll get into the maybe your breakdown, but I kind of want to get back to your personal experience. Like, when did you already have an appreciation for the intensity of the rivalry before you got to Michigan, or was it kind of like you kind of found out real quick once you got here?
Yeah, no, I kind of found out once I got to Michigan. I mean, I'm from Toledo, but I grew up in Cleveland, so I wasn't all that familiar growing up with Michigan State or Michigan for that matter. So I didn't realize. I mean, I knew it was a rivalry. I didn't realize the dynamic of the rivalry, right? And I didn't realize the hostility that the two schools have for one another and the student bodies have for one another and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'll say it when we go back on air too. Like, the Ohio State rivalry is big and grand and historic, and there's a lot of respect, I think, between the players and the coaches and the people associated with the programs, just because of how good both teams have been for so long, and the struggles that they've created for one another. There's a level of respect there. There's none of that with Michigan State. Like, guys want to kill each other out there, and it's dirty, and it's chippy, and there's no love lost at all. I was not aware of it until the 2011 game. Was my freshman season when we wore those. We looked like bumblebees in those outfits, and we lost. I think that was our first loss of the year when we went up to East Lansing.
That was the first loss of the year. And
and lost to
broke out
them.
those uniforms so that you guys like changed uniforms like right before the game, right?
I think so. Now that you say that, I didn't remember that until you said that, but I think we did. Yeah. And that was not a good day. They had our snap count down, and that's those Pat Narduzzi defenses that just blitz, and they cause all sorts of chaos for us. Dave Molk was the center at the time, and Dave had a weird tick with his head so you basically knew when the ball was coming, and they keyed on that, and we couldn't stop it the whole game. And that was a painful afternoon in East Lansing.
Yeah, and you know what? But you came back, and I think that was I hate to bring this. Al Borges might be listening. There was a fourth down call there that they wound up blowing. It was a little bit of a trick play, but the tight end, there was an MA on the play. So I cut Al a little slack. There was an MA on the play. I believe it was by a tight end.
Koger wouldn't have made a mistake. It
wasn't Koger. I don't think it was Koger.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Koger.
Now that you say that, I briefly do remember that. That was a hostile game. I didn't really realize the hatred, quite frankly, that the schools have for one another.
What's
coming back in about 15 seconds, guys?
All right, yeah. Well, I'll have you think about what maybe the dirtiest experience you had on the field against Michigan State. So just think about that for a moment, and then we'll get to it.
I got to stand by. Coming back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back here on the Michigan Insider. Let's talk 1050 WTKA online at WTK.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub on the other side, and between the lines with Jack Miller as he breaks down the trench play. We spent a ton of time on the offense because there was so much to get to. They had to make an adjustment to find some success. And the defense really was good for the whole game. Sans one play, which we'll get to, the 75-yard touchdown. But other than that, they were pretty well bottled up all day long. And this was another one of those games for Aiden Hutchinson. Every game is like highlight reel for Aiden Hutchinson, right? So one that really stuck out to me, Jack, was just as I think it was Klatt. I was going through the video. So Klatt was like, Aiden Hutchinson, he's having a great season. Pass rush, he's just tough to stop. And as he was saying that, Aiden was hitting, coming from the outside with a bull rush, and he got a sack on the play. So it's like, man, this is a guy who shows up for this team every game. You have to account for him every game. And for all the good players that Michigan has had here over the past 6 or 7 years, and only been a few, I think, where you can say every single game they made big plays. Every single game. That's been Aiden this year, Jack.
He's special. He's a special player. There's no doubt about it. Sometimes, I know we talked about this at the beginning of the season, Sam, is, good teams have to play really good and they have to have a little magic. And he's got that, right, as an individual. And I think maybe the most impressive thing about Aiden to me, he's freakishly strong and freakishly quick and fast. And we know that he's a great leader, and he's leading that locker room and getting these guys to buy in and play hard. But from what he has said from the beginning of this offseason until now, he's been about it, right? It hasn't just been, it hasn't just been talk to, for the media or player speak, or, we're going to work really hard and he's been about it and has showed up and performed. And we've seen what this defense has done, led through him and Josh Ross and some others. He's a freak. He's fun to watch. I love the way he plays ball. You'll see here, this is third and long. They're in their own territory. They got to throw the ball. This is time to pin your ears back and get after the guy. You're licking your chops as a defensive lineman here. And you see him time up the snap count, watch him get low right as it goes off. He explodes off the ball. And see how low he is. He gets right into the right tackle's breastplate. I don't care. Not many NFL right tackles are going to be able to take that on if they don't have perfect technique there. And he's back there. Don't forget, if you see the rest of the clip, I think Mike Morris is there. I think Ojabe's there. I mean, they all get back there. but it's that right there is what you want, right? You set yourself up with a 3rd and long. He's right on top of the snap count, and boom, just gets right into him, makes no bones about it. Certainly helps that the rest of the offensive line is collapsing as well, but that's what you want. That's how you dial it up. But incredible technique, both hands in the breastplate, rips right around it. You got no chance. I mean, that's literally like, that's walkthrough, right? That's how it looks in a walkthrough. That's what you want, and that's what you go deliver on when you're Aiden Hutchinson.
Right. So, there were maybe 1 or 2 times where maybe they got him in this game. 1 or 2 times where maybe they had they were able to get outside on Michigan because they were able to get the edge. So I'm going to show what a play where, hey, they got Hayden trying to come underneath some blocks.
Yeah.
And they were able to get outside Michigan on this toss sweep. And I showed this because they came back. Like you see in games, Jack, the team has success with something, and they said, let's go back to the well on that. And this is not a guy that you could take advantage of like twice. You might get him once with the play, but to think that you're going to come back and get Aiden Hutchinson with the same play, yeah, good luck with that, Jack. He's just that's not something that you're going to have much success with this dude.
Yeah, and Sam, I would argue that across the board, that could be said for the entire defense, right? I think Coach McDonald's probably not getting enough credit for what he's done with this defense. They are in place all the time. They play hard. Aiden's certainly a guy that that's going to happen with. The rest of the crew is this way too. You see here, it's a toss sweep out to the right. They got like a bunch formation. It's the idea is kind of like we talked about earlier, Sam, with that pin and pull, right? Try to set the edge. And really what you're trying to do here is exactly what happens. You're trying to bait that edge defender to take the easy way out and get inside of everything, right? And when you're a guy like Aiden and you're Superman and you're flying around making plays all the time and you think you're big and strong and fast enough to just go play football and make plays, sometimes you pay the price on this stuff, right? And he does there. He gets inside. They allow the edge to get sealed, and the running back gets around. Now, it's a full defense, right? It's not just Aiden on that play. Brad Hawkins was a little too slow getting over the top of that. Dax Hill was a little lackadaisical. He could have made that tackle before the running back got to the first down. So it's a full team effort there, but you see what happens when one thing misses, it's more imperative that the other guy makes up for it. And when those guys are behind as well, not doing their job at 100%, you pay the price, and Northwestern got the first.
All right. So, but they try to do it again. And yeah, no. No, you aren't going to get them a second time with this guys. Northwestern. This is Aiden Hutchinson. And Aiden Hutchinson looks the same, doesn't it, Jack? Looks the same.
Well, look at the adjustment, though. And this is why I go back to some of the coaching, how I think they've done a great job this year. Look how wide he is at the start of this play. They bring this formation in. He was tucked inside that last defender before. Now he's on top of him. He sees the action come to him, and what's he immediately do? He's a smart player. He immediately gets outside. He doesn't even look inside to see where the ball is. The minute he sees that bunch formation and that action come to him, he lines up wider, and he immediately gets outside when all those guys start trying to get over to him there. That's what a good team does. That's what a good coaching staff does. That's what good players do. You see him up at the top. He's so wide, gets outside, still ends up setting the edge and almost making the play. And then, like I said earlier, that play you showed before, guys were a little too slow getting over the top. That time, everybody's screeching down the line. Mike Morris does a good job getting off his block there, coming right down the heels of the offensive line, making that play there. But it starts with Aiden and the coaches making adjustments, forcing that to be bottled in, and the rest of the defense getting there.
All right, so Jack, be remiss if we didn't show the one play where the defense just got 75-yard touchdown play. It was really the only success that Northwestern had on the day. So I'll bring this one up, and you can talk us through what you saw here. Because, you look at the back they're going to face this week. Kenneth Walker's a really good back. He's a guy that if he gets a crease, he could be running for a long time, right? So, you don't poo-poo a play like this. You go back and you try to dissect it so you can prevent the damage from happening again. So let me go ahead and bring this up for you so you can break it down for us.
Yeah, that's the thing about good defense, right? Is all it takes is one play to not be where you should be or to give up something you shouldn't. And, an offense can put points on the board that, probably wasn't all that well deserved, or you feel like that, right? I think everyone felt like that going into halftime. Like, how are we this close, right? But all it takes is one play. And that's what happens here. The defense is out of position. I think it's a well-schemed play from Northwestern's offense. They got leverage on everybody there. The defensive line does a bad job here. Quite frankly, they don't get any push. They don't get off blocks. That's a great view here. You can see, and it's man coverage. You see Josh Ross, the linebacker, to the field. He vacates the middle of the field because he's got that tight end one-on-one, right? It's man coverage, one high, so the safety's dropping way back. He can't help. Josh Ross flies out of there to cover the tight end because, like I said, it's man coverage. And then the defensive line doesn't get off blocks. Their offensive line does a good job. They double team up to the will linebacker. They seal him off. And guys are out of place here. Brad Hawkins coming down from the safety position, not in the right place. And like I said, you pay the price for these types of things. The unfortunate part is, good teams who are explosive, like a Michigan State, like an Ohio State the last week of the season, you can play great defense, for the entire game besides a couple plays. And those really good teams will take advantage of when you're out of position. And all of a sudden it's like, boy, the defense played great. You give up one big play, and, the way our offense works, the 15-play drive that goes down and scores 7, defense plays great for 14 plays, and a team goes for 80 yards one play, and all that matters is a scoreboard 7-7, right? Even though the game might be completely lopsided at that point. That's the dangerous part. That's what this defense really has to hone in on this back half of the season, is making sure, not to give up the big play, make sure they're in position at all times.
All right, so Michigan State. This is you mentioned that it's the respect is virtually nil here. Gets really, really dirty, and the stakes are as high as they have been in this rivalry. I mean, this is from a record and rankings perspective, both teams undefeated and ranked in the top 10. Last time there was something like this, I think, is 99. I mean, 2003 was a big game too, but in 99, you had number 3 versus number 11, both teams undefeated. It was up in East Lansing. Yeah, that's kind of like this one this week, Jack.
It's huge, right? I mean, this is what you want. This is, all off season. This is what you're hoping for and thinking about, right? Is that you're going to roll into East Lansing with an opportunity to play a great Michigan State team and go beat your rival on the road to cement not only your place in the rivalry, but your place in college football this year. Boy, I mean, who can't get excited for this one, right? I know we were talking off air about the rivalry. It's intense. There's not a lot of love lost between the players, between the coaches, I would probably argue the universities themselves. It's personal, right? It's an in-state rivalry. A lot of students between the two schools looked at one another, and I'll leave it at that. And sometimes, this is the fun part about football, right? It's an emotional game. It's a passionate game, and it's a game of imposing your will on your opponents, right? And where else would you rather be? What else would you rather be doing than an opportunity to roll into East Lansing and knock off their season and continue a spectacular one for yourself?
The dirtiest thing you saw or experienced versus Michigan State, does anything pop into your mind right now?
I mean, there's a lot of nothing crazy, right? I mean, guys, playing through the whistle, obviously, the bottom of piles can be rough sometimes, right? Guys trying to finish piles, especially as an offensive lineman, right? Trying to come over the top of guys. And, I never experienced anything, out of bounds, egregious, totally dirty in this. But you knew that guys were fighting and scrapping and clawing through the whistle every single play, right? And talking a lot of trash, right? There's a lot of trash being talked on the field. Yeah, that's a good point there. You can see the comment about Golston when he tried to rip Denard's helmet off. That probably was. Looking back on that, yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, it's chirpy, it's chippy. Guys are going to be fighting each other. Guys are going to be, playing for their teammates and protecting their teammates, right? I think that's how a lot of that dirtiness for that era started was when Denard, almost had his head ripped off by Golson there. So it's bitter, it's intense, it's going to be hostile in East Lansing. But you know what? I mean, God, that's the part about playing ball that you miss so much, right? Is those opportunities to go in there and showcase what you can do and have fun, right? This is why you play. This is why you play major college football, for games like this.
Yeah, both teams with really, really potent run games try to take a lot of pressure off of their quarterbacks with that running game. Devin seemed to think that the game would come down to which quarterback, was able to perform the best. Like which guy was able to, maybe overcome or take advantage of the opportunities that were going to present themselves based on the other team really, really going all out to stop the run game.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's one of those games that's going to come down to who executes when the opportunity is there, right? So when you decide to take a shot, take a home run ball, do you put it where it should be? Is it caught, right? Do you flip the field all of a sudden and then the running game pounds in, a couple runs for a touchdown, stuff like that, or don't you, right? And both teams are going to have that opportunity. I think one of the things that in a game like this always matters is that big play, right? A turnover, something, a special teams play, something weird, something unique, because I do think it'll be a back and forth game for the most part, right? Like you said, both teams want to run the football. That's their identity. It's their bread and butter. I don't think either one's going to shy away from that. Both defenses are going to try to stop it. So then it's going to come down to where does that one play happen, right? Is it some sort of, like I said, taking the top off the defense? Is it a screen out of nowhere? Is it a weird trick play or a jet sweep that gets out in space? A defensive turnover, right? Whatever it might be, it's going to come down to some weird, play. And I'm not saying that that'll dictate the game, but it might set the course for the game, right? It might be halfway through the third quarter and you feel like, boy, this is that type of game that's at a turning point. Something's got to happen, and then boom, it does, and that team runs away with it. I really like Michigan in this. I really do. I think they're built for this type of game. They can't get down early, right? I don't think the team's well built to come back from behind, but they're built for this kind of game. There's no doubt.
Well, Jack, another great breakdown as always, man. Appreciate your time, and let's keep your record spotless, man. Let's come back next week and talk about another W, hopefully. Before you go, tell the folks about the Highland Group.
Yeah, Highland Group, full service insurance brokerage all throughout the Midwest, one of the largest privately held brokers in the country, offering property casualty, employee benefits, personal lines. Anybody out there looking for options for yourself or your business, feel free to get in touch with Highland, HYLANT.com. Sam, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you. To the rest of you folks, we got to get to a break. We'll come to the other side. I imagine my producer wants to take it to the top, and then we do a recruiting roundup on the other side. Is that how we're going to do it, Mr. Weintraub? Get the thumbs up on